So how do you see property into the future? At the moment, you get the Saturday paper in Adelaide and it's the Bible. Will that continue, or, you know, I mean, you're in the other space, but realistically, you know, is it a cultural thing that will continue for years, or how do you see it?
Well, my own view is that the move of the audience online has far outpaced the real estate industry's approach to how they advertise. So they're still doing boards, they're still doing lots of ads in the papers and the glossy magazines or the local newspapers and stuff. And sure, that still works, but it's pretty high cost. And the other thing is that you can have a lot more impact with the lower cost stuff. And if you look in the US particularly, which I see as the leading market, you go to a website like Zillow. If I go to Zillow and I type in a property, I see a valuation of that property now, and I see the next door's property. So there's open data about all the property values. If I go to a website like Trulia.com, I can go in and ask a question, you know, hey, I want to subdivide, I'm looking at a property, I want to know if I can subdivide it or whatever. You do that in the US and there's a horde of real estate agents who jump on and start answering those questions for you. So we haven't seen those models emerge in Australia, but I've been working with the real estate institutes, really pushing, saying, I want to see the property data open. I don't want to have to pay for property data, and I don't, you know, I've got nothing against RP data, but government data, which they have around land sales and all that stuff, why isn't that made available? It's the citizens' data, and the property decision you make is often the biggest financial decision people make in their lives. So I've been working with the federal government, real estate institutes, saying we want that data, we want it open, and we want to be able to provide valuation data in real time to our people. Because if I'm looking at listing my property, you know, I come from Melbourne, so, you know, I always say in Melbourne 500,000 plus means 500,000 plus another 500,000.
Those days are meant to be gone.
Well, I run a benchmarking site called Real Business First for real estate agents, and we find that Melbourne certainly does still have the prices that they get against reserve are the highest, and that may be because the quoting prices. But again, this whole notion of transparency in real estate, to me, is the key thing. Transparency drives markets. If I can get the data and be confident about the data around valuations, even if it's directional, I'll be much more willing to go and say, I can buy that property, or alternatively, oh, I didn't realise my property was worth that much, I might look at listing it. So I see the whole sales velocity in real estate being held back because we don't have open data, and we don't have, our real estate sites are looking at how do I sell property valuation data, as opposed to if I make that data available to everybody, I get the industry just rocking along much better, much faster.
So in terms of getting back to press versus online, because it's a big issue, press or print versus online, who's holding, is anyone holding it back? Like, is the industry holding it back, or is the consumer culturally still back, you know, coffee table? And will the iPad make a difference to that? You know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my thoughts are that I'm not sure, the last numbers I looked at was something like over 70% of people researching a property start online. So, you know, if you look at it, I think your audience has moved, but it goes back to that sort of fear factor you talked on earlier. Real estate's a pretty fragmented industry, and whilst you get your major franchise groups and all that stuff, they're really sort of individuals or groups of individuals running agencies. And the level of knowledge in those agencies just isn't that high. So for them, the standard way of doing things is get the board, put the ad in the paper, but we're not seeing a mass experimentation on, well, why, you know, I say to real estate agents all the time, rather than me go to the Sunday paper, open up and say what's sold in the area, I'd much prefer to see a local real estate agent saying, here's what's sold in the area. Not just what they sold, but here's what happened in the market in your locality. And I'd go there every week, as opposed to the paper, and it's not hard because you guys, you know what's up on the market, you know who's sold, what's selling, you know how many people are turning up to the auctions. That sort of information is really easy to do, and you can set up a blog site for free. And you know, like what you're doing with TOOP TV and the YouTube stuff, it's like if I can actually hear from the agents with the expertise in a sort of information-based way, as opposed to, you know, I'm a real estate agent, I'm the greatest bloke on earth. That to me is really valuable, and you can really build your own audience and your community to the point where if you can adopt it faster and quicker than anybody else, you'll dominate your area.